Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Chestnut Checkers. My name is Keith Riddle here, as always, with Jordan Tampien. And today we are talking a little bit about, what are we talking about?
Yeah, like what we see going on or opportunities in the Spokane market, specifically from the angle of development / business, because I think we have a really unique perspective.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
There we go. The what's crack-a-lackin' episode.
In the market. No, I think
funny.
both of us get that a lot. We're guys that are out and about and moving and shaking and in the know and seeing projects and people and things. And so I get a lot of that. People are always like, hey, man, what's going on?
Oh, yeah. And then it just helps kind of as you're diving in. I mean, you got the public stuff like your Top Golfs and things like that going in Liberty Lake, but it's how do you know about Top Golf before Top Golf ever gets there?
Yeah.
And where's that next area of town that you could benefit from things like that? Or, and so, no, I thought it'd be a fun one because we have, to your point, we talk about it a lot, but I think it'd be a fun one on the podcast because I would assume a majority of listeners have a Spokane tie of some kind.
Yeah, and let's do like a macro view versus micro, but macro view of the Spokane market, specifically the Spokane, economy and real estate market and all that is, I think both of us were at the Spokane Real Estate Market Forum a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about the biggest thing that Washington has going for it right now in Spokane is medical.
Yep.
And what,
medical
logistics?
Medical office, logistics, not even all manufacturing, certain manufacturing.
And so just to break this down a little bit for our listeners is like, look, the economy, right? Here, a lot of places are driven by, you might have some sort of a big manufacturer like Boeing or something. Boeing might live in a certain town and like Seattle or something. And so then they always will base their like economic forecast or a lot of what's going on is like, is Boeing expanding? Are they building more things? Are they hiring more people? That kind of stuff. Spokane is like a really niche market in the sense of like, we're not driven by a huge like industry.
Correct.
Right. And we don't have a lot of those kind of, I guess you'd say benefits, but also those drawbacks that can come with that. And we're not, this is one of the things I thought was interesting. It's like, we are the largest, I believe they said, either city or county, and then top 5 in the state that are economically not driven by a port. Like we do not have basically water frontage of any sort. Yeah. And so if you look at like King County and you look at Shinomis County and you look at like all of, whether it's Tacoma or Seattle or whatever, up and down the West Coast, there is a lot of money that is made economically via imports, exports, shipping, and all that jazz. And Spokane, we are Eastern Washington, we're kind of out here on an island where we don't really have.
We have the rail in the air. So it's still a port district. So they turned the airport into its own port district. So what does that mean? It means that now the airport can derive income and revenue and go out for grants and budgets and funding and things like that. And so you're seeing a massive expansion at the airport because of that. I want to say it was $60 million first phase. And then he spoke at that conference, but I want to say they're planning on over $100 million into infrastructure improvements at the airport. And then you go take a halo outside the airport and you have all of these spec industrial and rented industrial popping up around that one. But one unique thing we have is we have the rail and the air. We just don't get the benefit of the by sea, what is it?
By land, by air, by sea.
Yeah. But because we have that basic element there, cheaper power, we think that's an opportunity. But they did point out very clearly the negative side of close proximity to another state that you have to compete with regularly.
Yeah, we're competing with Idaho, who has significantly lower tax base, a significantly higher or more thriving economy, but also more going on, more growth, right? Yeah. Like more people going there, more industries going there, more corporations going there, and they are basically kind of kicking our ass. Yeah. As far as a competitive analysis between the two states for attracting both people and businesses.
Correct.
And the amount of money that's flowing through those economies is better, right? And it's not being taxed as hard.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think you're just seeing construction in general. That's what they're speaking to. That's what I was looking up on here was the amount of slowdown. So I got the number exactly right, but of number of units that were introduced. And so our market took an influx. Like you got a picture of fire hydrant, right? And so we're used to bringing on to market about 800, 900 units a year. And so our absorption rate is an absorption rate being the amount of time it takes for a new unit introduced into the market to be rented.
Or bought.
sold or bought or rented. And so we always have had, which is what made us a strong market, negative absorption rates. We were never building fast enough to do it. And I was looking up here in 2023, we delivered up to almost 1,700 units. 2024 was 2,000 doors. And then 2025, it's dropping down to roughly, I think it was right around 1,600. And then in 2026, they're expecting 850 again. And so you had this spike based on that demand. And then you're going to see.
Now, were those rental units or new construction?
Rental units.
Okay.
Rental units, not counting single family for sale units, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, just apartment units. And that's kind of how I track kind of what that demand is. The hard part is we have the widest gap we've ever had between the cost to rent a home and the cost to own a home.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're seeing this huge push of people into, because of lack of inventory, apartment style housing. Now, I hope that's not the way we solve this thing. I think there's a better middle ground. But right now, that seems to be the only way we can build with some ferocity and density is apartment housing.
Yeah. Well, and it's because, let's break it down. The cost, if I'm a developer or builder, the cost for me to build, let's call it 40 houses or 40 townhouses or condos that I can sell. They're going to go on the sale market or the resale market, new construction, versus the cost of me to go and build 40 apartments, right?
Yep.
Or units for people to rent is relatively the same.
Yep.
It doesn't cost me any more or any less, right? But if I build them and sell them, and the people who are buying them can't afford them,
correct,
then I have to rent them, or the people who are renting them, just the financing has to be different. Meaning, like, I'm going to hold the end product at a different like loan to value or with a different loan product, or I'm going to bring more cash to the table. And so I can, as a builder developer, build a 40 unit apartment complex, take the margin that I'm building into the project in profit via the actual construction of it, building it new, and a little bit of cash, and I can rent it and it makes sense. But I cannot do that same thing and develop an end product that the average person can afford to buy. Yep. And now you're sitting on it waiting for people to buy it. I think a lot of times people get this twisted in the sense of they think that it's builders or developers that are driving the product that's being built. It's much more likely the economy or the local municipality's laws and rules. If I make money building or developing things, I'm going to build or develop the things that make sense. Correct. I'm not going to just sit around at my dinner table at night and be like, you know what, this year I'm building apartments. I'm not building any more condos or townhouses because I want people to rent from me instead of own. No, I would much rather you buy them. Yes. I would much rather you own them. But if the end product is like, well, hey, you know, there's 10, 15, 20 other developers just like me doing this. If we all build, you know, houses or condos or townhouses next year for sale and 800 people show up to buy them and we build 1,800 of them, who's going to be the sorry mother trucker sitting around holding 1,000 doors that aren't moving?
Whoever had the most money. Yeah. It's like a DR Horton sitting on them.
Yeah.
Well, you got to look at projects. So you have that one-off mill at the roundabout out towards Meade High School, backside of Whitworth. I believe that was a Garski project. But
are you talking about the one by the roundabout?
Right at the roundabout. That was supposed to be a for sale product.
I thought that was always rentals, but I thought it was 55 and older.
Yeah,
it was
so
a retirement
pivoted.
community.
But I believe it was supposed to be initially a for sale product, and then kept it as rental. And again, this is hearsay, but ideally that's how a lot of builders went in was, hey, we're going to build this, and now they were converting to rentals just to hold. The downside of that model is if you don't have the cash, you're bringing cash to close those loans. Yeah, and so it's really halted what should be a more robust sales market from a development standpoint. We had projects kind of out in Deer Park, and those ones, you saw a reduction of almost 10, 15% on pricing. So DR Horton started renting theirs as well. And so what I think you're seeing in this market, at least what I took from that, was you're going to see some of that just naturally get absorbed. Because what was positive was you still have in-migration of, I believe it was like 5,000 households a year moving to the area. And so I think that side of it is still optimistic. You're seeing a lot of it get absorbed, but you're still probably probably 2026 still of getting absorption before you're losing the 1-2 month concessions. And rental rates potentially could go up, potentially. I wouldn't count on that, and so then what it does is put even more constriction. So
the rental rates have to go up, or they will go up incrementally just to keep up with the cost of the tax increases and the insurance increases.
And tax went up 9%.
Yeah.
Nobody scheduled that. They usually go 2-3% the most. And so you're watching this huge increase on the expense side, very little on the operating side. And then now it's why most people don't want to develop them or want to hold off or wait because cost of construction didn't go down much. And so that's what we're seeing across all of our projects, that unless it has like a multifamily tax exemption or has some kind of incentive on top of the project, or I was able to get a bunch of participants from the subcontractor base or contractor base to kind of invest in the project with me, they don't make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And that's where, so then if you own the land outright, so you've owned it for a while, that makes sense. You build for cash, obviously, makes sense because you're more prepared to ride that storm out. But I mean, we're seeing most of our stuff is below 50% LTV leverage on it.
So what's interesting though is like if you really look at this, is like, okay, so that allows me to build and develop if I'm a builder or developer, but that doesn't make the end product any more affordable.
No. Or it's more expensive.
Or attainable
agreed.
to the people that need the end product. And I think that's kind of the weird dichotomy we're in right now, is where the government or people are screaming for housing or affordable housing or attainable housing. And it's like, listen, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you cut the cookie, so to speak, at this point in time, is like it's either too expensive or it doesn't make sense for builders and developers to develop that product, or you're limiting the pool of people who can play in the building and developing world to even create product at all. There's such a smaller pool because they have to have sat on the land or be building cash or be just circling around a ton of incentives and all sorts of things. That all of it, though, comes down to the end is like, it doesn't make them any cheaper or any more affordable or attainable for the end people. I mean, I think business has proven that for, decades, centuries, whatever, of like having fewer players doesn't make the product more affordable.
No, it makes it worse, actually. It's the opposite, right?
Right.
What made rentals rates stop climbing at 9%? More units.
Right.
I mean, it proved itself, right?
It's like
the
if
more
you want
units,
affordable or
control
attainable housing, then you should make...
You need more housing.
Yeah, you need more housing, and you need more housing from more people.
Correct.
You need more developers and builders providing the houses, which will create a more competitive market for the end consumer to take advantage of.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you make it more difficult to develop and build, and then you limit the pool of developers and builders, then you get more of a control on the market, and you also get more expensive market, which is the exact opposite of what they want.
We're trying to do. Exactly. It's like you create the thing you're trying to avoid.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's. I mean, I think the numbers get a little thin until you have those. I think the city of Spokane's doing a great job with their kind of incentivizing or trying to find ways to motivate developers to put units in the ground. The county, not a ton of incentives out there. Spokane Valley's working through their new comp plan changes, so I'm excited to see what theirs is. But it's definitely an interesting market there. You have little pockets selling really well. You have certain price points selling decent, and then you have some that are just sitting for a while. So it'll be interesting to see which one in 26 kind of emerges as a front runner or as an opportunity. And I think what we were talking about before we came on was like kind of utilizing the BOCA rules to take advantage of infill lots and smaller project size. Instead of doing the 50 unit one, maybe it's a 6 unit townhome project or something that kind of you can
That's
control.
something I'm really passionate about. I'm also really interested in, just selfishly, right? But for a variety of reasons. One is because I think it's an opportunity for sure. But B is because it's kind of like just more my style. It's just more like what I prefer. Like I kind of like funky, eclectic, cool, right? Like, and so there's a drastic difference between new construction, right, and remodeling.
Yes.
Right. There's, I think, guys that do well flipping or restoration or rebuilding things, and then guys that do new construction well. I think that's apparent. But also, I feel like this is a similar game, but in the development world, it's like, not that it's easier, but it is, I think, easier and more straightforward to say, I have a flat piece of ground and I'm going to develop 300 units here. Or are you going to try to go infill 300 units? Right. I'm going to do a cluster of 12 here, a cluster of 8 here, a cluster of 6 here, a cluster of 15 here. But ultimately, I think that's where the opportunity lies. And I think it's a reality for us. I think the government's going to force us in that scenario situation. So just breaking this down a little bit for the listener is like, I think it was Senate Bill. I either always screwed up. It was Senate Bill 1011 or Senate Bill 1110. I think it was Senate Bill 1110. It was the middle housing bill that Washington State passed a few years ago. But it was basically a decision on the state's part to go back to all the municipalities and city and kind of force urban infill, right? Force, more density. And it makes sense from a macro scale if you think about it, right? Is like if you are a state or a municipality and you're watching growth happen, like growth's inevitable, growth's going to happen. People are going to move and cities are going to grow. But if you're constantly growing outward, it can be problematic. You have more stretches of sewer to service, more stretches of water lines to service. You're chewing up more land. You have to build more roads, curbing, swale, sidewalks. So they're kind of like, well, where does all the stuff already live, right? Well, we already have bus routes that run through the middle of town. We already have sewer lines that are running through streets and water lines. So you already have the infrastructure, and yet you have a lot of vacant land inside of the city limits, so to speak, that could be developed. It just hasn't been developed. So they're like, well, how do we kind of force or incentivize that to occur? And I think it's I think time will tell us whether it's a good or bad idea long term. But I think from a macro view, a 30,000-foot view, it's a good idea. Yeah. And it makes sense. But now it's like, well, how do you make it happen now in reality? So how do you get guys like Jordan, or maybe guys more like Keith, or just anybody who's got property inside of town to take on the onus, the responsibility, the work of going and developing that when it's easier either not to, or to go look for a different project that's on the outskirts of town or has a better opportunity for volume. And I think it really comes down to, you got to incentivize them. You got to encourage them. You got to make it financially. Well, first it's got to work financially. You got to make the numbers work. Yeah. You got to be able to make somebody go in and say, okay, I got a house. I'm going to chop an extra 3 or 4 lots off of this property that's currently existing, that's doing nothing. And it needs the pencil to where I can create those lots and not have them cost $1 million, right? So that's step one. Yeah. Step two, though, is like you have to motivate or inspire or incentivize somebody to want to do it, because it's a lot of work and energy and effort. And I don't think that just saying, well, it financially works is a good reason to do anything.
Nope.
Right?
Nope. I get you there. Yeah.
And especially for the people that do it for a living. And so like another good analogy or kind of descriptor of this is it's kind of like the trades. And I know a lot of the trades because I've been in this world for a long time, but like you get like a plumber or an electrician. And a lot of times as a house flipper, like I grab a house and I'm renovating it and I need like a new electrical panel, or I need like a all new plumbing run in a house. And I kind of look at my plumber or my electrician and they're like, yeah, dude, like, why would I come rip out lath and plaster or try to skirt like plumbing down? It's like, it's a hassle for them. And they're not really seeing the upside for it. They're like, man, I can go plumb new construction all day, every day, right? Like there's a process. It's like, well, they frame it and then the HVAC comes, it's like, they're like, no one's in my way. I can drill through all the studs. I rip pecs through all the basement and the walls. Everything's clear, easy, clean. Yeah. I go in, I can plumb a house in 2-3 days. I'm out of there. It's done. You want me to come up to this 1912 property on the South Hill and like janky around with 4 different products, like a Galvy and it's like, so you kind of get it. You're like, and then like, or if I do that, like, then I want you to pay me.
Yeah, then I'm going to charge you for
right? Because I'm taking time off these other jobs to come do that, or I got to throw my crew on it. So it's like, yeah, now I want $300 an hour or whatever. And you're kind of like, well, that, again, doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. Like it doesn't make sense for the South Hill project to go like, well, why would I dump $150,000 in this South Hill house when I could just go buy a new, right? So it's all the way down the line. So I think that's kind of what's happening in the development world is it's like, I think developers are all kind of shrugging our shoulders alike, and we're looking at these state kind of mandates or things, and they're like, yeah, you can go build a 4-plex on any single family lot now. And we're like, yeah, good luck.
Sounds
fun.
good. Yeah.
So how does that play out, you think, Jordan?
Yeah. So it's just the tale of two tapes. So I look at it when you're doing a
tale
project.
Of two tapes.
Is it a tale of two tapes?
I thought it was a tale of two cities. I don't know. What's
that's a good book.
Two tapes?
No, 2 tapes is where they tell a different story.
Oh, the tale of two tapes.
Maybe it's a tale of tape. It's basically where you can see 2 sides of a coin. There we go. Everyone knows 2 sides.
Okay.
There's 2 sides of a coin. So when I look at it, what's really hard is there's this mandate to go create housing and make it affordable. And then there's massive regulation against the ways that you would do that. So where we got our kind of come up in the bigger ones was taking C-class apartment buildings, renovating them, bringing them up to rent code, and then leasing them and just kind of raising that experience there. Now, again, you can get aggressive, and I definitely see how they were trying to curb people tripling rent to get it there. But The downside is with the rent control that was passed, because we have rent control. Nobody says it out loud, but we do have rent control, is you can't change for more than 10%. So now if I'm renting a unit for $500, a 1-bedroom, I know they're worth $800, but I got to put some money into it. I can only increase that rent by $50 that next year, then $55 the next year. And so the reality is it took an entire chunk of things where we had a pretty good working crew that could go in and do that stuff to where we don't even look at them anymore.
Yeah.
And so our move is to new construction. Well, then you move to new construction. What is it? So you want me to put a 4-plex on a city lot. The downside of a city lot is I have to compete against a for-sale product. So then all of a sudden the land value for that is $100,000 a door, because that's what you would put on it. And it's not highest and best use, highest and most profitable use would be that. But I'm going to put a 4-plex. So now I got to pay 30%, 40% premium for that lot. Next, I'm in a neighborhood. So I'm going to have to go through getting yelled, like with the Garland.
Yeah.
And throw me in the bus for no parking. I'm like, I didn't create the rules, man. Like, I didn't say no parking. That's what the regulations say. So you got to deal with that. Next, you have tight lots. So they're harder to work in. You can't stage on them. You can't park on them. The next one is you don't have enough parking because our lots weren't designed to throw 4-plexes on.
Right.
So then I finally do. I go through all that headache and I go put a 4-plex on. But what's a new construction 4-plex worth today? $800,000.
Yeah.
What does it cost me to build it? $800,000 plus now that land cost, and that doesn't count the tap fees. So like on my apartment building, 72 units, we paid $195,000 in tap fees. Well, I'm still going to end up paying for tap fees for a 4-unit. So break that down, it's about $3,000 a door. Well, the smaller number of doors, the more expensive it is. Because those fees kind of escalate depending on the size of the water lines you're getting and all that stuff. And so hard part is that you go over a certain square footage count, and I need sprinklers in them. So why do you see a lot of duplexes in Spokane? You don't need sprinklers.
Right.
So now I need sprinklers. Well, it's not just the cost of putting in the sprinklers. It's now I need a tap for a 2-inch water line that can feed my sprinkler system.
Yep.
Plus, I need annual monitoring of that sprinkler system, which makes it more expensive to own and operate. And so you go down the list, and it's like there's a reason people skip that 4 to 6 unit property to build. And I think the only way around that would be eventually making them condos so you could sell them for $350. Then you would have a chance to maybe recover it. But right now the liability is so high that within 7 years you could be sued for anything wrong with that building.
Well, you'd have to make them townhouses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And that's how you'd get around it. So then you're going to have this townhouse product that works well in Kendall Yards but doesn't seem to trade anywhere else because they're 3 stories straight up and nobody wants that.
A lot of steps.
And they're skinny, narrow. Yeah. And then by the time you stack them on a 50 by 120 lot, it's tight. And so you're trying to create, they're asking us to create this product that doesn't work. So where I see it working the best is in the Valley, if they adopt those same rules, which I believe they have to. I believe it's coming on, they have to. But
I keep saying that, but they seem to be dragging their feet. Yeah. But it would be interesting to see.
But like here's a good example. I saw a house I won't even say where it's at because I don't want any backlash, but it's 4 acres. Single family house, great location, on city water and sewer. So I could run it, but like on that one, I could probably with Boca rules put 60 units on it. But the downside is then the water, infrastructure, all those things, and so now I have to price that land based off putting 24 townhomes or something where I don't need to pay all those excessive fees. And so a site that could have had 60 to 70 units has 20. And so you're going to see this balance. So my answer to your question is you're going to see this balance between the value of land. Does it go down? An infill lots I think are harder. And then cost of construction does not go anywhere. So then do rents go up enough to justify, or sale prices go up enough to justify building that product?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think what you'll see is a lot of covered land plays where you're going to see people buy 5 acres with a house on it and then rent it and wait for a few years. Wait till absorption is negative again. Wait till demand is up again. Wait till rents are going up again.
Or there's some other form of incentives, or there's some other form of like the city being willing to work with you to create some product there.
Exactly.
Tap fees might come down. I don't know if that ever happens. But.
Yeah, and the hard part is that they can't really because we're so far behind on infrastructure costs. And so kind of what we're looking for now are those infill strategic locations. So we have 5 or 6 kind of target areas. And then it just kind of depends on how it's funded. So I had an investor come. He had $1 million, up to $2 million, and he goes, "I just want some real estate." And so I actually am working in reverse now. So it used to be I go find the deal. All right, I got the 808, and then I go find the investor. Now I'm like, all right, investor, what do you have? You have $1 million. Let's say you have $1 million. You have a borrowing appetite of up to $4 million. So we have $4 million to do this product. You need X, Y, Z. And so then I'm able to go and I'm like, okay, that building fits. It fits under these 4 reasons he needs. It solves that. And then I'm putting the offer.
Yeah.
Which is before it was the opposite. It was find the deal. And I was like, now I don't think any deal is a deal. And every flipper out there will say, obviously, they'll make money on their flip. I'm not saying that necessarily, but it's like they're for a stretch there, you could find massive wins, like big deals where you could go put a building on it and really change the value of the project. Now I think they're marginal unless you have some incentive tied to it from an operational capacity, like a multifamily tax exemption which can work on 4 units. It's just not significant enough to move the needle.
So how do you think that Spokane fares long term as a, I would call mid-sized city, stuck in Eastern Washington with the Western Washington politics?
So, I mean, I just know what people from New York and all the other places that we get our money from say, and kind of that was always their big question was when were we going to get rent growth, rent caps. And so that's usually what they say is the first segue. So the downside about a rent cap is they start at 10, which is reasonable, right? We don't bump rents over 10% anyway, unless we're doing some massive remodel to the unit or something, right? So it's usually 2 to 3%. I think that's kind of the fair number because that's 3%. About what utilities or costs are going up. And so I don't think that's the issue. It's when they then next year say 9%, and then the next year say 8% and a fee. Then they say 6%, and then all these little situations, because what they're trying to do is put the burden of affordable housing back on you and me. But they don't understand that if there's that much of a burden, we're not going to build it.
Yeah.
Is to your original point, you're disincentivizing the people who are taking the risk to put that out, to put those units on the market. And so I think that'll be Spokane, super bullish on Spokane long term, just what it presents. I think we're going to have enough people coming in. I think for sale products are still going to go up again. Like I like that. The apartment development piece, I think you'll see kind of really have to have some strategic advantage to be truly effective in that arena until larger funds come into the area.
Yeah.
More patient capital.
That's kind of what I see too, is I think it's I don't want to say you're not changing anything. It's like a blip in the radar, right? Like it's one of those things where you're creating short-term kind of departicipation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And yet screaming for participation. So it'll be interesting to see how it figures out. But it's the history tells us, and the reality is that most of the time it just means bigger, right? You just have to have a bigger fund. You just have to have a bigger player come into the game. You just have to build like bigger projects. Yeah. You know, it just doesn't pencil to do a lot of that stuff. So I don't know. I think the jury's out on a lot of that middle housing, urban infill. I think there still is some opportunity there, but I think a lot of that opportunity exists. And I don't know how you get the word out or kind of educate the average person, but it exists for the consumer. Yeah. It exists for the person who currently owns a property to put a couple ADUs on their property, sell off a lot or two. But I don't see any major developers going and playing that game.
No, and everything. I mean, that's what's so difficult, right? Is that Valley is just a good example. I've done a few out there. Is that, okay, I own this site. They're all oversized lots. So, but let's say you have the house on the front typically, and you have the big space in the back. Sets up really well for a drive aisle and some units. And but to get 3 separate parcels, I mean, it could take you a year and a half, 2 years, and then let alone they call it horizontal infrastructure. So your sewer, water, fiber, all of that, and then asphalt, curbing, all those things. You're $30,000-$40,000 per lot.
Yeah.
So before you even know what you have on those lots, well, the hard part is when you go to build a building, the only number that is really flexible in there is what rate you're borrowing at, but that's not really that flexible because there's a market for that. And then it's what you pay for the land. So what goes down if the sale prices aren't going up? The land values. So now you're putting all this money into this infrastructure, permitting, fees, horizontal, all of that work. but it's slowly ticking down. A duplex lot used to be 150, 160. Well, now they're 110.
120 to 140, yeah.
Yeah, depending on location.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the issue we have right now, is there is literally no incentive to go divide up these lots unless you're putting apartments. Because now all of a sudden I can buy a piece of land for $500, put 70 units, and now I'm into it $8,000 a door.
Yeah.
And my horizontal cost is now spread across 70 units. So instead of 40 per unit, or in that case, it's a duplex, it'd be 20 per unit, I'm down to 8.
Yeah.
And that's the issue right now, is we're just sitting in an efficiency game where it is super inefficient because we don't have good condo laws to build anything but an apartment.
So I know enough to be dangerous, but like the nuance between condo and townhouse is the liability long-term for the condo developer, correct?
Yep. So the better way for a townhouse is zero lot line, is what you call them. So then you're just taking your lot line and going vertical with it, but you can butt up against them. Condo is you're a common owner of the whole thing. And so in condo law, if it leaks, if your drywall shrinks, it's any defect, which again, all laws probably had good intention, is probably designed because somebody built a shitty product.
Sure.
And then, hey, we got to protect against this so people buying these don't get screwed.
Right.
And now it's gotten to the point where, at least over here, we can't sell for enough to mitigate that risk. You'll see a few higher end products. I think Jim Frank's the best in the business at it. And his products are really cool and he does it. You'll see Larry Stone's. Those are all condos, right? Yep. So it's not that you're not doing it. It's just that they are then saying, hey, that is a risk. I'm willing to take on said risk by doing this. And I think only time will tell until that gets changed. And so there's certain ones, they passed one where 12 units and under, they'll waive some of that liability. So you're seeing some movement towards it, but right now it's just super inefficient to build anything but an apartment or a large tract, large scale.
Or townhouses, but like you said, they don't tend to move. That product doesn't move citywide.
And you're building them for $300,000. They're renting for $2,200.
And you can,
I can build a 2-2 in an apartment building and rent for 17, right, and build that all for 130.
And your price per
140
per foot is not that much different than just buying a house anyway.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I think if I was going to go that route, it's hard because you need a big tract of land then, which doesn't work for infill, is like cottage style, detached cottage style, build for rent type communities. A little bit like we were talking about what Garski was doing on Mill there, right? Mm-hmm. I think that does have a play. The hard part is the cost to build is so high. Like, I mean, you probably get a better deal because you build in that range, but I mean, you're probably, to build a house, you're $250 a foot, not counting land or interest.
That one's got to be at least that high just because of all the cool rock.
Oh, no, those are probably $600,000 builds.
Yeah.
$650. And I mean, again, if you can sell for $9, that's the game. Then you make your money in that margin. But what happens when that margin disappears and you didn't pay cash?
Yeah.
You borrowed, and your debt service on $600 with 25% down is $5,200. You're not renting those for, well, I don't know what he's getting in rent, but my guess is not $5,200,
no,
right?
No.
And we're just sitting in that precipice right there. So what's going to happen? Existing home stock goes up in value. More people build apartments. And these infill lots, until somebody gets some modular design or some way to get the cost way down, or I still don't understand why they don't just waive those. Like from a tap fee, permit fee. I know there's a cost to them, but like it's super easy. It's easier to absorb it on a larger project. Like to pay $200,000 on 72 units is a little easier. But if I'm building a fourplex, it's cost prohibitive.
Even a duplex.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking like $10,000 a pop or $8,000 a pop. I mean, it's a
and that's not even permits.
amount.
That's not even permits, right?
No.
I was just talking about the tap fees.
Yeah. Or the install.
Yeah.
You know?
Not even counting the install.
So it's just one of those things where, and again, that's one of those things, not to get stuck there, but that's one of those things where it's like, I understand the way that they were doing things for so long led to these like inefficiencies and basically like maintenance issues, as well as like cost issues associated with our infrastructure, but they're just like trying to fix it all now in like one fell swoop. And I don't know if that's like the best avenue to do that. You know, I don't know what the other solution is, but I feel like there's enough other opportunity or ancillary ways to fix it than taxing the new tap
newcomer.
fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happening, right?
We all had a party for 20 years that you weren't a part of, but now you want in the door, but it's like, your ticket's going to be like a 400X.
Yeah. So then what will happen is then it doesn't encourage development. And then you're going to have, then the rent will go up again because there's only so much. We have people moving in, right? And it creates its own self-fulfilling prophecy with it.
And I feel like a lot of politics lean that way too. It's just like, rather than tax a large population of people, a small amount, they will heavily tax a small sect of the population that they think they can get away with, or they can convince the masses to okay, because it doesn't affect the masses for the most part, right?
Correct.
So it's like, going back to, again, the millionaire tax. It's like, well, it's not a hard sell.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we need money. Let's get it from the rich guys. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Or, I mean, you're already
so the
developing
original
anyway.
sale is an easy sell. It's like, hey, we don't have to pay for it, and we're just going to tax these guys real hard. Okay. It's like, but they're coming for you next.
They are. That's the thing, is it always trickle down, because the reality is, like, when I build that, your rent's going to be based on making sure there's enough margin.
Yeah.
And so then what happens? Rents go up. And so it just turns into this kind of weird in between. But yeah, I would say we'll have an infrastructure problem. We'll have some of those growing pain problems. But like, I look at it like downtown. I think this is how Spokane approaches those things, right? We have a deficit. Understood. Any business has a deficit. You got to find a way to solve it, right?
Sure.
But then what we do is we double down on the thing that caused the deficit. So in my head, I'm like, why isn't parking free downtown on a weekend? And they're going to argue that they make revenue on Saturdays, so it is free Sunday, but they make enough revenue on Saturdays, it's worth keeping open. But I'm like, and I'd have to guess, as my guess, but we would make more on sales tax and our collection of that and business and thriving pieces like that than we might on the parking meters for a day. And again, this is speculative. I'm not sure if it is, but we look for cutting off those pieces instead of what can help us grow and push us there. So we build all these awesome entertainment area, the podium, the arena, the stadium, all that stuff. But then we stop there.
Right.
And it's like, how do we encourage more tourists to come? Because they're spending more money in our community than leaving without taxing our infrastructure.
Sure.
And so my hope is that there's kind of a concerted effort that gets around that, because the reason I'm bullish is because we have all of that. And you get here, you're going to bring more people here. I always say it about North Park too. I'm like, once you go to North Park, you'll realize it's the best bang for the buck gym in Spokane.
Sure.
And so the idea is like Spokane's that way, actually. Just get to Spokane, you'll see, look, it's a great place to live, raise your family, do all that stuff. And so, but the key is, how do you not just get them in the door, how do you keep them here? And I think little things like that need addressed. But yeah, I've been on a few of those committees, and it's not a pretty picture of looking at what still needs improved. And as you add more people that tax on the new infrastructure, it's just been so delayed. I'm not really sure how you end up covering that except for borrowing.
Well, what's interesting is I think a lot of them, we talked in a different podcast earlier today about the hard work that people will do to avoid the hard work that they should be doing, you know? And I think that governments are no different. They're made up of people. And so it's the same thing as what I feel like happens a lot of times is, especially mid-sized to smaller sized cities, they will just, rather than do the work for themselves, they will look to the larger cities and go, what are they doing? Yeah. Well, what's Seattle and Portland doing? Like, what are they doing over here? And then they just adopt policy based on like, well, the justification of like, well, this larger city or these other cities are doing this, so this is what we need to do. And it's like, was it Einstein, I think, that said like, all problems are created with the level of thinking. How does that go? You can't solve today's problems with the level of thinking that created the problems, right? So if you want to solve today's problems, then you have to approach those problems with a different level of thinking than you brought to the table when you created the problems. And so I think that's what it's reminiscent of that to me. Like when I look at a lot of these problems that we have, and then the proposed solutions or the current pathways that we have, is it's just kind of the same old thing. It's like, well, costs are increasing, we've got budget shortfalls, find ways to increase or tax people a little bit more to get a little bit more, but you're not solving the underlying issue or even approaching it much differently of like, stop expanding the budget, stop spending money you don't have, like figure out a way, you know, and
101.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, it's kind of one of the things that can be maddening about politics. It doesn't necessarily shy me away, but it's definitely where I think there is room for what I would say in a positive light is there is room for players to come into the game, or whether it's politicians or peoples or leaders, to just start to look at the problems a little bit differently. And you kind of see this in different industries and in different people. It's like a lot of innovation and a lot of change happens in certain industries because someone comes in and just totally thinks of it differently.
Yeah.
They come in and say, hey, man, I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off and I'm going to just totally approach this at a different level than everybody else's.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say and I think that the cool part is we do have people at the city that are awesome exploring those options and looking. I think it's just when you write it on the board, it still doesn't look good no matter how optimistic or how creative you get of like there's still the deficit. But there are pluses like the infill, like you already have the sewer lines for a lot of people, like you don't have to increase those. So I think it's just also education around what that looks like. Because I think even, hey, let's put an ADU on there. It's as simple as that, and it's as hard as that all at the same time. Like there's still, okay, great, I want to put an ADU. Okay, now you need a site plan. Now you got to get a civil stamp site plan. What's your landscaping plan? Did you get the structure approved? Is it signed off by an engineer? And you go through this whole steps, but I mean, it's just fatigue. Yeah. And so it's not that straightforward as what it could be, depending on how we try to move it forward. And then again, it's just the cost to build makes it a tough financial justification when you're doing one unit.
Well, and it's also kind of like an aha when you say that too, because I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but I'm sitting here out of one side of my mouth saying, well, the opportunity is really for the consumer or the people to like put an ADU in their backyard or to kind of like make a little money developing like a little lot that they have to provide some additional housing or an opportunity. And yet the sophistication level and the nuance and the experience level that is required to do that lands on the professional side of things. Because how would like Johnny Consumer know, like,
you don't?
How do I get it, who do I contact for a survey and for an engineer and for a landscape design plan and for, you know what I mean? They don't even know the hoops they're going to have to jump through or how to jump through them. And so it's kind of like, yeah, well, like, again, going back to that bureaucracy or the process is you kind of need to strip that back, right? Like, I don't know how you do that, but my assumption is you make some sort of exception of like, hey, if it's a homeowner self-developed scenario for an accessory dwelling unit, like you would have to remove some of these like
make it easier
requirements for them to have to like, do you really need a landscaping plan? It's in their backyard. Couldn't they figure that landscaping out by themselves? Like I kind of think maybe they could, like can you tie into an existing sprinkler system that already exists? Like I think there's some
we make it super difficult. On the farm we would have just built the building.
Yeah.
Right. And you plug it in.
Well, our ancestors would have just built the buildings. Our grandpas would have just built the buildings. I mean, I think that's the kind of tying of the wrists or the hands that's created some of these problems. Is all of these sort of, again, like you said, these laws and rules were put into place because there was maybe a bad actor or a bad scenario where some guy built some shoddy condos somewhere and a bunch of people gotten, screwed over. But now they're like, well, to
compound that, we're going to make it the opposite.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. But I mean, I'm really excited about how pockets are developing. So you got like the Garland area, obviously we're both in there, but how that developed. The Perry obviously has been doing it. You're seeing like little neighborhoods pop up. And I think that's a sign almost of a healthy ecosystem as well. And so I think downtown come back just because it's one of the major hubs of office and commerce, right? But then you're seeing these awesome little pockets pop up all throughout town. You got Meadworks out north. And so I think that will end up leading to, as long as we can maintain downtown, so it's not like a exodus, but I believe it'll go the right way. All of a sudden now you have the tourists, the hotels, all those things down there. People come stay, play, pack, and then you have these great quality of life neighborhoods that you can develop in. So I think for me, that's kind of the zones we're targeting, is some of those spots where they have the little bit bigger lots, mostly in city of Spokane. I feel like they have some more incentives for you to kind of get there versus the valley right now. But
have you ever thought about just doing like land development consulting?
We talked about that. I think in mine it was just getting to this point. I think now if somebody was wanting to build a 24 unit, I'd probably save you like 20%. So that one actually makes a lot of sense because there's just things I can go evaluate on a site. Like when that investor came to me, I already found a building because I have a list of like ones that would fit depending on how much money you had. But you have to know the site, you have to know the laws, you have to know overhead power lines versus underground. And
you've been through the walls, you've been bloody. I mean, I've had the same thought of just like, I think for me long term, it might be more about that consulting role of like,
Yeah.
I have enough knowledge to help consult someone through a development process to where it's like, it wouldn't be really expensive for them, but it would save them a lot of time or energy or money. But I don't necessarily have to do it because it's like you're saying, like, no, I'm not really interested in going and creating 6 lots on a infill lot. But if you're already the landowner and you already own it out, if you are, a person who builds duplexes and you just want to get, 12 duplexes going, like, but you don't have the expertise, then it's like that land consulting development aspect, I think, is a niche.
Yeah, and so like that's kind of how we got our last 3 projects, and we're looking at 2 more, is that the landowner just came to us with the land.
You're right.
And so then we just took the land, got permits,
so
got the funding.
Or I lean more towards the consulting aspect of it, but I think you lean more towards the partnership aspect of it. But
so we do it in that capacity where we kind of step in and help lead that charge on it. But yeah, I think there's still some opportunity there. I think it's figuring out ways that we can incentivize, come up with programs to help people build that housing, whether it's to create generational housing or additional income to allow us better affordability of housing. It's just on its face, right? It's supposed to create units, and I don't know. I'm making up a number. I mean, what do you have, an extra 100 units because we now have BOCA rules outside, and one project is probably 48 of those units.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those is that on practice, it's like, this is great. But then from a developer side, you're like, this is so expensive. Like the people who are going to take advantage of that, unfortunately, will aggregate 4 city lots and drop an apartment on it because that's the only way you can really afford them unless you've been sitting on the land. So, and I don't think apartments are the way. I believe they're not the way. I think there has to be some other middle version of housing that needs built or addressed. That isn't $4,000 a month to rent, but still gives that option. So we're looking at some creative ways.
You think it's modular?
I think it's modular just because but it's hard because modular is like $300 a foot. So it's trying to figure out a quality modular that you can get loans for. Like, I think that's the balance between the two. It's like you can get a modular one, but it's more like an RV. So it's a personal loan or a personal property loan versus real property. Because it's not going to be build cost. I mean, we've tried everything from different panels, and you don't want to cheapen it up too much. And minimum code requires a certain level. So even anybody building at minimum code, you're still going to be expensive. And I think we build a pretty efficient product for less than most people right now. So I think it's going to be something like that. It might be yurts, who knows?
Yurts.
I mean, or I've had a couple people going over to China, look at those like all-in-one units. Something like that. I just don't know how they would hold up with the snow. And I think those are going to be like park models. Yeah. So then do you see a lot more like trailer park?
And I worry more about waste long term. Like it's not a viable product. You're creating throwaway housing or disposable housing, in my opinion, which is.
So you ever seen Boxable? Mm-hmm. Something like that, I think could be an interesting one where you can actually ship a product that does it. But again, it's studios. I don't think we need a ton of studios. We're not missing studios in our market. I'll tell you that much. Like it's that 2 to 3 bedroom.
It's family, young family, middle.
You're getting out of an apartment into something. We don't have that something right now. So nobody's getting out of the apartments, which then it just trickles all the way down.
Although there are times I wish I could develop out shipping container size modules and bedrooms and put them on my property for my kids to live in.
Well, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
I'm like, that's your bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside 300 yards.
Exactly. Well, you can probably do that now. You don't need code. Just to stack them out there.
Hey,
give
moves.
a little
modular.
Fan. Yeah, exactly.
You got a fan.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there'll be some advance there, right? Every difficult one has that, but you also just see a lot of people moving. They're gonna move for climates that are markets that have just more affordability.
Well, and I guess that's what I was asking, backtracking a little bit of what do you see for the future of Spokane? For me, I think we got a tough road ahead of us, and it's because of that reason. I haven't given up on Spokane. I think Spokane still can have a bright future, or potentially has a bright future. But right now, you have this scenario where Idaho's kicking our butt. Yeah, and there's a couple other options where the corrective. I don't see any near future corrective measure for us to take when we have neighboring states or other alternatives. Not even have to be neighboring, West Coast, Midwest or Northwest opportunities for people to go And they're weighing all that out. And they're like, hey, man, a lot of people are coming to this region or to this area for a lifestyle or a strategic play.
Yeah.
Whether they like Four Seasons or they like the outdoors or they like the mountains or whatever. It's like it's a beautiful place to live, rivers, all that. And yet 30 minutes away or 2 hours away, you have these drastically different alternatives where it's like it just doesn't make financial sense to choose Spokane when there's other options that are better at this point in time. And so to me, I'm just thinking to myself of like, I don't know, like, do you want to become the Cleveland Browns of the NFL? Do you just want to like get your ass kicked? That may not land for you. I don't know how much NFL you watch, but I'm like
enough to know Cleveland Browns.
It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, you're a player in the game, but you're gonna be the runt of the litter or whatever. And that's the thing I'm worried about the most for Spokane or a city like Spokane is I feel like we got to be able to control a little bit of our own destiny or be able to play that game because there's a lot of what I would consider not quite as big of cities, so they don't have the problems that we already have, that can move a little quicker, a little bit more nimbly, and be a little bit more attractive to the lifestyle choice or the reason for somebody moving to the Northwest. And yet we don't have the upside swing, right? So you're kind of, I don't know. Like, I guess that's to me where my mind goes is like, that's what I'm not loving about the current situation is just feeling a little bit trapped into getting our butt kicked for a while without really a clear answer in sight.
And there's none. I mean, the only clear answer would be that Rathdrum Prairie builds up so much you need activities, right? And so then you're coming over. That's why Liberty Lake Top Golf makes sense. You're hitting on both growth curves. But I also think that there's been a concerted effort for kind of that manufacturing, kind of taking the West Plains and bringing enterprise here, because that's what will drive it up. I was reading an article about San Francisco. They just had somebody, like, their housing market's taking off right now again. And they had somebody bid $1 million over ask price on a house. And that was kind of the highlight of the article. And it's because they're hiring all the AI jobs. So their office is recovering. Everything's recovering because of that. And so we don't have a Micron spending $15 billion like Boise does,
right?
Or Simplot, or all the things that Boise has. And so what we have to do is either build it, create that side and grow, or it's set better expectations. And I think that'll be the biggest difference, because once you get rid of the zero income tax, and now we have one, now you're taking away even a few more reasons that you would have just chosen Washington over the other. And I think love of community and the outdoors, all that, I think we'll have a draw. But if we don't have the jobs and stuff to actually keep somebody here, that's what will become, I think, the kind of the Achilles heel on how we grow and what we grow into. So, but we have so many other natural things that you can't do. And I think, like I said, I think we end up becoming more of a tourist destination. I always think we need a zoo here. We have cattails up north, but I was like, when you go to a big city, I'm like, Boise has a zoo. But like if you were touring and you're trying to find a place to go, I'm like, you can come to Spokane and get shows, get sporting events, the parks, go to the lakes. There's just enough where I think,
can't do zoos, man. I'm not in on the zoo train, but I don't know.
It just seems like a staple of a good spot. But like that other thing, because we have like a couple museums, but nothing to that. But I think that.
Keep the animals out of cages, man. Keep them.
Yeah, but you're also helping them. Aren't they helping them? Anyway,
I don't know, dude. All I know is every time I go to a zoo, I feel depressed and sad for the little creature in the cage.
No, I do now saying it out loud, but it's
like.
But
I also, zoo aside, I do think you're right. I mean, I think Spokane is a beautiful place as far as like tourists could be. You could build on that. I think that's probably. A great idea.
I think it's our best one. And then now you have downtown creating all this taxable revenue that then can now be used to fix problems like our infrastructure and things like that. So it's still bullish there. And I think we always keep saying we're having a housing problem. And I don't even think it's a housing problem as much as it is an issue. We want lower rents, but it costs too much. That's our problem. And then the regulations don't help. Regulations don't help. The cost of build doesn't help. Our limited labor supply doesn't help. It's just all of those are compounding into a scenario that just doesn't make sense. The downside is then you need programs or things that incentivize somebody to do it. It's just developers aren't looked on that favorably. So it's hard to look like you're giving money or doing something that way.
I would love to say that I feel like we're changing that perception,
No,
Jordan, but I don't think we
I
are.
don't think it is at all. I think it's more cementing the other way. I'm like, dang it. Come on, listen to the podcast. I'll tell you it's not that glamorous. I just enjoy doing it. I think that it'll be finding those opportunities of what that looks like. I mean, because you're looking at like big box stores. Is there an opportunity there? Maybe, but it's not really. They're really hard to retrofit. Like, it's just buildings are so hard to retrofit, the kind that are being abandoned right now.
Mm-hmm. Malls.
They're really hard to come up with a higher and better use. And so, yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see kind of what some of these places get repositioned into, or like a Northtown Mall. But I was in there. It was kind of full. And Low went up there to catch a movie because they had it playing at the right time. And I mean, there was a decent amount of people in there. Not like you would probably like to see if I was a mall owner, but as you get going, it's like not everything can become a server farm. So what else are we going to do with some of these buildings? And I think we have to create more places of experience. Like, so with our apartments now, we're thinking experientially on what it looks like. So that's why 24 units sucks, because you can't afford to put amenities. So now you're going to try charging the same amount as me, and I have a fitness center, rooms you can check out, barbecues, community gardens, dog parks.
For me, I would, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but if I was going to pin it, it would be a gym scenario. Yep. And I'm talking like a multiverse gym.
Like a real gym.
A real gym. Pickleball courts with the weights, with the swimming pool, right? So you got the gym thing, big gym thing, and then mix in like schools.
Yep.
Like, I think you mix in school, like, because look at what schools are. Schools are playgrounds where areas for kids can run around. They're gyms where they can play basketball. They're right. People like to be close. They're walking distance to their kids, that kind of stuff. What do they both involve? Security, right? Mall. So I mean, like, you kind of mix if you can mix the mall thing with the school thing, with the gym thing, with the housing thing, now I think that you're coming into something that's interesting.
Yeah,
right?
And that's kind of what we were thinking about with our Central Park one there, was having the 107 units next to the gym.
Not that I don't want to go anywhere, but I like the idea that I can go and have all the things that I want to have in one spot or very nearby.
Exactly.
But then I also think there's some huge cost savings in that. Like,
well, it's huge if you don't have to
that infrastructure of like.
Yeah, if you don't have to put it on that's why Peyton actually does work. Downtown development does work, because I don't necessarily have to put a Move Fitness in mine or a pickleball court, but like a block away is Press.
Or Exactly.
And so, like, for me, it's why I've always loved urban infill development. It's because then just let me build the building, but now what's your outdoor space? It's 1 block to Riverfront Park.
Yeah.
And so you get those ancillary amenities without the cost of having to pay for and offer those. So, yeah, like I said, bullish. I think this year will be kind of a year to see where the rates and stuff come to. But I think to your point, I think there's some really decent infill type opportunities, if you know what you're looking for.
Agreed. Well, anything else? Yeah, anything else coming to Spokane that you're super excited about? I don't know of any big secrets. I was just curious.
I was trying to think of any big secrets. Yeah, I don't know of any big secrets except for nothing that's concrete. And I wouldn't say it on here unless I knew it was happening. So nothing concrete. But yeah, there's a few ones. I'm more excited about the events, right? I think even with what I'm doing now, I'm so focused on our business growth rather than unit count growth right now. Is like, how do we make those more efficient? And I think Spokane's going to do a really good job of bringing us really cool events. There's a big music festival coming to town. I'm just super excited about that. So I think 26 will be the year of experience and events.
Nice.
Real estate's going to shake how it's going to shake, but then we'll have a good feel of how many people are coming here, our hotel occupancy up. What does that look like? That'll help drive some of these decisions, because if it's up, then all of a sudden those peripheries may make sense for another hotel.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, maybe that's how we're driving some of this. So
I love it.
All right.
Well, another one in the books for Chestnut Checkers. If you guys love these podcasts, please share them with a friend, and don't be afraid to like or subscribe. It is absolutely free to subscribe.
Yes.
All right, you guys, thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind, while you're there, give us a 5-star review. Maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.